Hey, Friend-Tastic friends. Today I'm going to do my April wrap-up a little bit differently. I'm going to fill in my April reading bullet journal while I tell you about the books I read. So for the month of April, I kind of went through a reading slump. I wasn't really getting into any of my usual books, and I ended up just getting into the memoirs and self-help books written by the Fab Five from Queer Eye. So I didn't really have much to say about those books. Usually my journal entries are a lot longer. Sometimes I even take up multiple pages for a book, or I add pages, I tape in notes, that kind of thing. But since I was in a slump and I wasn't really invested in these books, I didn't need a whole page. So you can see that I cut my left side of my spread into 4, so I can put all 4 books by the Fab Five over here. The only Fab Five members that did not write their own book was Anthony Porosky and Bobby Burke. Anthony Porosky actually has a few cookbooks out, but obviously I'm not going to read those like I would a novel, so those aren't on here. But the first one I started with was Over the Top by Jonathan Van Ness. I'm obsessed with Jonathan Van Ness. I love him so much, so I was so excited to listen to his memoir and learn more about his life, and it was really, really good. They're all read by the author as well, which I love, because you can really feel their emotion and hear how they actually want it to be said or read. So it's always my favorite whenever the author is the narrator for the audiobooks. So Over the Top, I gave all of these books 4 stars actually, but Over the Top I gave 4 stars. I thought about giving it 5 because I loved it that much, but at the same time, I knew that I would never revisit it, and that's kind of my 5-star requirement, is if I would ever revisit this book and reread it, and also if it changed my life in some way or broadened my mind or something like that. And this book was really good and really enjoyable, but I just knew that I would never reread it or have any life-changing things. I would definitely recommend it to anyone struggling with self-discovery or bullying or members of the LGBTQIA plus community, anything like that. I definitely think that it's an enjoyable book for anyone, really. And the things that he went through in his childhood are very relatable, whether you're a part of the LGBTQIA plus community or not. I have a little stencil that I use to do these stars. If you've never watched my bullet journaling stuff before, I always plan stuff out in pencil, and I have this little plastic stencil that I got at a dollar store, I think. And I literally bought it just because of the star, because it was like the perfect size to put in my reading bullet journal. So another thing I decided to do differently, if you've never seen my reading bullet journal videos before, is I actually printed out the covers of the books to tape in instead of writing the titles at the top. So I actually liked this method, and I may keep it for future stuff. I was just kind of bummed that I don't have a color printer. All I have is a black and white printer, so I may need to purchase some type of mini color printer for myself to print these from my phone, because the pop of color is definitely what makes me happy, and these being in black and white, I was kind of bummed. But either way, at the end of the day, I liked it a lot. Overall, for the month of April, I read a total of 7 books. So that's not the best. I definitely think it's not bad, but I had hopes of reading more than that. It's okay, though. I try not to beat myself up about it. It was definitely hard getting these little squares taped in there, I must say. But the next book I read was Naturally Tan by Tan France. Tan France is the fashion person in the Fab Five. Oh, I guess I should have mentioned that JVN, or Jonathan Van Ness, is grooming for the Fab Five. So he's the one that takes care of their skin, hair, and face. But yeah, face, hair, all that stuff. Tan France does fashion. So, I loved Tan's book because I love Tan. I love all of them, but Tan and Jonathan are definitely my favorites. And Tan is a Pakistani person that grew up in England. So he has that gorgeous English accent whenever he reads his book. And I loved that. I loved it so much. I loved his fashion advice. I saw a lot of mixed reviews for his book. And I gave it 4 stars for the same reasons that I gave Jonathan's 4 stars. And I think that a lot of people gave it less stars simply because he does have a lot of opinions that he shares about what you should wear or what you shouldn't wear or how you should act in front of your spouse and stuff. And to me, I just think it's kind of funny. And at the end of the day, it's just his opinion. So that's why I thought it was funny and I didn't really take offense to it or take it to heart. There's even one part where he calls out people with unnatural hair colors. Like if you're constantly rocking purple or pink hair, maybe you should rethink that. And I definitely felt called out by that because if you are new here, then if you go back and watch, you can see that I definitely always have different colored hair. It's always like red, purple, pink, blue, all different colors. So yeah, I guess for me, I just took that as just a fashionista's opinion on things, and I didn't really take offense to it or take it to heart. So yeah, that was a 4-star for me. I really loved his viewpoint on, he talked a lot about racism and classism, and he talks a lot about not coming out until very, very late and being much older. Like he talks about how he came out to his family after Queer Eye had aired, basically. He talks about meeting his husband, who was a Mormon in Utah. I think his life is just so fascinating. I believe he owned 3 fashion lines or fashion businesses that he had got to the point where he had reached the goals he wanted to reach and he was ready to retire, so he sold them all. Yeah, I really liked his perspectives on a lot of things, so I really liked his book. The next book I read after that was Karamu's book, and Karamu I gave 4 stars, but honestly I had thought about giving it 3. I feel like Karamu's was my least favorite. It was like maybe a 3.5 or a 3.8, so I just rounded it up to 4. It's not that it was bad or that it wasn't enjoyable. Maybe it's because Tan and JVN are my favorite, so I'm biased. Maybe that's why I liked theirs better. Again, Karamu just has such good perspectives. I loved hearing the different stories for these men or these people. JVN is technically non-binary. So I shouldn't say these men, these people. It's just amazing that all of their stories are so different. And I think it goes to show how different everyone's story is and how understanding we need to be as a people, since everyone goes through their own stuff. Karamu talks a lot about being gay in the African American communities, and he talks a lot about religion and faith as an LGBTQIA plus member. Talks about family and his kids and how that whole dynamic worked. He talks about addiction, drug abuse. He's definitely had a very interesting life. He's been on reality TV. He's working on getting his own talk show right now. He's definitely a very fascinating person. So the book was enjoyable. It was just, I think my biases of having my favorites made me not want to give it as many stars. But I did truly enjoy it. It's funny because I originally wanted to wait to read these books until June for Pride Month. But, whatever gets you out of your reading slump at the end of the day is what's going to work for you. And you just need to do what makes you happy, So I will just have to do my research and find some really good LGBTQIA plus authors for June, because that's what I really want to do. I am finding that I really, really love queer authors. And queer stories, queer romances. I don't know why. I think I like the fresh take on it. I read another book by a queer author, TJ Klune, and I read Under the Whispering Door, and he always has really good LGBT representation in his books as well, but we'll get to that in a minute. So after Karama's book, I read the book titled Queer Eye. It's written by the Fab Five plus, I believe it's like the director or the producer. I can't remember his name, but it has 6 different authors. And they all narrate their own parts. So this is the only time that you'll actually be able to have a book where you can hear Bobby Burke and Anthony Porowski. So if I could, I would give only Anthony Porowski's part 5 stars, but since I have to rate the whole book, I gave it 4. I'm obsessed with Anthony Porowski. If you've never watched my TikToks or my Instagram reels where I rate the Fab Five, I'll see if I can link that in the description because I had a lot of fun ranking them. Anthony Porowski is like, I'm secretly in love with him. I wish that I was in some type of like tripod polygamist relationship with him and my husband at the same time because he just sounds so perfect. His voice is so sexy. I'm completely obsessed. If he would write a book, I would read it. All of it. I'm here for all of it. So the Queer Eye titled book is more of a self-help book than it is a memoir like the rest. They all give you tips on how to better your life, kind of. So it's nice. It kind of makes you feel like you're a part of the show almost. So that one was pretty good. They don't really talk about their own stories as much as tips on making your space better or entertaining or quick tips for grooming and taking care of your skin and just things like that. It's really short too. I think the Queer Eye titled book is only about 4 hours. But after that, I had read The Alchemist. I had a lot of people tell me about The Alchemist and how much they loved it. And I don't know if it was because of the reading slump or because I just really didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't my favorite. I'm pretty sure I gave it 3 stars. I'm pretty sure. I guess we'll see at the end because I do color in my star ratings at the end of this, but it's another short one. The audiobook I think was only about 4.5 hours, maybe 5 tops. And it's older. I believe it was, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe it was published in the 80s. So it is a bit older. And honestly, I think one of my biggest pet peeves while listening to it was there was a lot of talk about like God and faith, and I am just not a person that connects to that very easily. Sorry for my head being in the way, by the way. I'm realizing how much it stuck out, but I was very dedicated to getting straight lines for this one. I don't know why. I just wanted to make sure these ones were really straight with the paper taped over. So anywho, yeah, The Alchemist, the Alchemist and other characters in the book talk a lot to the boy about God and faith and what God wants. And I just, it doesn't bother me as much, but I can't really identify with that at that point. So it causes me to kind of like lose my, I don't know how to explain it. I kind of fall out of the story at that point since I can no longer connect like that. But I guess on a broader sense, it does have a lot of good lessons in it. Yeah, it's basically about a boy that has to cross the desert to find a treasure that he had a dream about. And he learns a lot along the way. That's kind of the basics of it. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever reread it. I was actually surprised that so many people had suggested it. But I'm not upset that I read it, so that's why I settled on 3 stars. It's not bad. It's not my favorite. It's just 3 stars. I probably won't remember much from it in the future because it just didn't connect with me. And after I pasted in the cover that I had printed out, I realized that it just felt kind of small. So I ended up writing the title in there anyways. I thought that whenever I had measured it that I had printed out the right size, but I printed it kind of small and I just didn't want to deal with reprinting one little tiny square on a whole sheet of paper, so I just wrote that in. I plan to go back and write in my thoughts at some point. I really like to sit with the books for a while rather than write right away. I know that sounded funny, but from here we get to Under the Whispering Door. I have had Under the Whispering Door on my list for so long. It's actually one of my 22 and 2022 books, and it's written by T.J. Klune. I had read The House in the Cerulean Sea in January by T.J. Klune. I can link my January wrap-up in the description. And I love it, dude. T.J. Klune is becoming one of my favorite authors of all time. He is an LGBTQ member. He definitely has a lot of LGBTQIA plus representation in his books, and I'm here for all of it. I totally love it. His writing just feels so real, yet so magical at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. So I definitely plan to read more of his books. He has some really cool fantasies and stuff out that I would like to get into. And I think I saw on his Instagram a little teaser to possibly another book that deals with the house in the Cerulean Sea. But we'll talk about Under the Whispering Door. I don't want to give you any spoilers because I think you just need to read it. This was one of my 5-star books, and yeah, it's yeah. I guess I can say that I'm trying to remember what's in the synopsis, but the premise is there's a man that dies and he finds out that death is not the end. I think that it even says that on the cover. So I thought at first from the title that this would be more of like a suspense or like a thriller, but it's not. It has the same exact vibe as The House in the Cerulean Sea, where there's more to life than what we see, and there's magic and there's hope and there's love, and you learn to let go, you learn to be vulnerable, and learn to have fun. And yeah, I always love the messages in his books, and I always love the characters. It's like every character is so well developed, even the minor ones and the backstage ones. You can just see them so clearly in your head no matter what. And I love his writing. I can't say enough about it. I feel like it's just a book that you have to read. Yeah, it's definitely a top contender for best book of the year for sure. I have a book bracket that I'll fill in at the end of the year, and I think Under the Whispering Door will definitely be a contender for the best book in April. But then I stumbled upon Ready Player One. Again, this has been on my list of 22 books in 2022 because I actually bought it a long time ago. I bought it probably a year ago at this point, the audiobook, and just never actually got around to listening to it. I just knew that I liked the movie, and I knew that the audiobook was read by Will Wheaton, and I bought it. And then I had never read it. I had never listened to it. And so I finally clicked on it, and I got totally sucked in, and I'm so glad I decided to listen to it. It is a longer one. I believe it's almost 15 hours as an audiobook. So, it could be kind of daunting, and it is a lot of world building. I think if you're not used to fantasies or sci-fis, it could be a little bit intimidating, but at the same time, I think the writing is done so super well. I actually already started Ready Player 2 because I didn't want the story to be over yet. I'm still really in the world right now of the Oasis and Wade Watts. So I do plan to do a movie versus book about this one because I have a lot of feelings and a lot of opinions, and I don't want to spoil anything in this one. It is a 5-star read for me. I did enjoy every minute of it, and I actually binge listened to it where on April 30th, I was listening to it all the way until 1:00 in the morning on May 1st because I got so close to the end and I needed to know how it ended, and I couldn't stand the idea of falling asleep and waiting until the next day to be able to finish it. So that's how good it was and how captivating it was. The ending gave me goosebumps. If you know nothing about the book, I'll just give you a little quick thing of what it's about. So there's our protagonist is Wade Watts. It takes place in the futures. I want to say sometime around like 2040s, 2050s, I think. I can't remember. I know it's in the future, but not by far. So and in the future, there is a thing called an oasis, which is a virtual reality world. The virtual reality world was created by a man that was obsessed with 80s and 90s pop culture, because he was born in the area, he lived in the 80s, he grew up in the 80s. And after the man dies, he tells the world basically that he has hidden an Easter egg in the oasis, and if you find it, you are now the owner of the oasis and the company that he's built from the ground up. And so our protagonist, Wade Watts, is a person that is searching for the Easter egg. And so I feel like it had a lot of good life lessons in it. I mean, I feel like the oasis is what's going on right now with virtual reality and NFTs and all of that. I think it's so fascinating that the author didn't really go that far in the future, because it does feel like this sci-fi novel is so close and so close to our grasp right now that it could definitely be a thing that we see before we die. The character development I felt was really, really good for the protagonist especially. And it's all through his point of view. So any other character building is really done from his perspective. But yeah, it'll be tough to decide which one's better for the month of April, whether it's Ready Player One or Under the Whispering Door, because honestly, I can't stop thinking about either one of them. I'm still going over them in my head. What was fun with Ready Player One, though, was I was playing along with him. I was trying to work the riddles through my head and think of other 80s culture references that could tie to it. So it was like I was playing along with the protagonist in that book, which was really cool. And Ready Player Two is starting out pretty strong for me. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. But basically here, I just wanted to show you guys what it looked like whenever I started to fill stuff in. I'm working from memory right now because I have all the actual details noted on my phone. And my phone is what I use to record, so I couldn't really look at my phone while I was recording. So I just filled in from memory. But you can see I just color in my stars pretty loosely. I never do a solid fill in those stars. I always just liked the look of doing a rough color with a black fine liner. I'm using my Sakura Micron, and I believe this is the 01, maybe? I think it's the 01. But yeah, I realized that I forgot to put start and finish dates on there. If you follow me on Goodreads, you'll see my reviews all the time. I write at least a 1-sentence review for every book. Along with my stars, you can also see like what I'm reading and what I want to read and stuff like that, what I have read, all those things. I'll link, my Goodreads is always linked below. But yeah, I basically track and I just do this out of my own enjoyment because I'm a big stats nerd. I keep track of the author, the author's gender, the author's ethnicity and or nationality. I keep track of how I got the book, whether it was through Hoopla, Libby, I bought it, whether it was an actual book from an actual library and not an ebook on an app or anything or an audiobook. What else do I keep track of? The length in pages and in hours. Whether there's LGBTQIA plus representation or not. When it was published, the age group is either adult, young adult, or middle grade. And then I keep track of whether it was fiction or nonfiction along with the actual genre. I try to follow like the 7 or 8 literary genres, which is like mystery, thriller, horror, contemporary, romance, sci-fi, fantasy, and then like nonfiction, whether it's educational or memoir, that kind of stuff. So I think there's only 7 or 8 that I have on my list. And then I keep track of my start and finish dates and then how many stars I give that book out of 5. I like to keep track of start and finish dates because at the end of the month, I always find out on average how long it took me to finish a book. Some books I can get through in literally one day. Some books take me way longer than they should if I'm in a slump or I'm just not really feeling them. So it just depends. For The Alchemist and Ready Player One and Under the Whispering Door, I'll actually go in and, like I said, fill in my thoughts, some quotes, but you can see this is my cover page. I'll put my stats here at the end of the month and all the books I read. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching. Enjoy that chunky notebook right there. It's getting big. Okay, bye.